Welcome to Send It, a new show that we're doing with Leviathan to help bring some of the most innovative protocols in DeFi and crypto to you. My co-host DeFi Advisor and I will bring many episodes, so make sure you give this one a like, share it out, and of course subscribe. Now in our first episode, we bring you TimeSwap, a non-liquidatable Oracleless money market, so sit back, relax, and enjoy. One last thing, please excuse the technical difficulties that I had. My camera was playing up, but hopefully in future that shouldn't be a problem.
Hello folks, what's up? Great to be here with Wajat. Hello sir, how are you? For sure. And we also have quite a surprise to you for the audience with a new show that we're actually starting on the Leviathan news channel. As we kind of want to grow Leviathan on several aspects, to be honest, and also we're very much interested in reaching new audiences as well. We kind of wanted to create our first new show, one of many, hopefully, in which we can present protocols and people from the industry and the space and give them like the proper stage to tell us about themselves, for us to ask questions and really to interact with them on a platform which allows us, in which we have much more time, unlike the daily show where it's mostly about news and updates. So I've talked to Wajat that was kind enough to agree on the offer. I was definitely one of the people that I wanted most to get involved on Leviathan, and I'm very happy about it. And after talking for a while and deciding on what should we do and where should we start, we started talking to the TimeSwap team. Thought they'd be great to have as the first guest for our new show. And Wajat, to you, man. And as you said, with the name that you've offered, that I think is going to be a great name for our show, send it, sir. I like
Yeah,
it a lot, man.
it's
I like it a
I
lot.
like it.
It
I think the
has
vibes are
the
good.
crypto.
It's like a positive vibe, yeah.
Yeah, it has a crypto. It has the crypto culture and good vibes in it. And also, just like you
Yeah.
told me yesterday, Wajat, it's general enough for us to be able to bring on pretty much whoever we want to bring on. So it serves that purpose well enough for sure. And we're honored to be here with Amit and Mimi from TimeSwap. Thanks a lot for coming, guys.
Thank you for having us. Pleasure to be like the first guest on this like new journey for you guys as well. Quite excited to be here.
Appreciate that a lot, and quite an honor to have you guys here. So I want to, first of all, even before we start talking about TimeSwap itself and all kinds of stuff that we want to ask you about, maybe you can like introduce yourself a bit, only the stuff that you want to share, of course, maybe a bit about how, like, what's your background, how did you even start with crypto, how did you guys get to know each other, to work on TimeSwap, timeline stuff. Feel free, go ahead, and
Yeah.
Mimi, feel free to start yourself. But
Yeah, sure. Amit can go ahead. I'll fill in.
All right. Yeah. So I'm Amit, one of the three co-founders of TimeSwap. So talking about myself, I come from a background in TradFi slash fintech. So initially started my career in TradFi, do some institutional credit stuff. Then moved on to like a fintech where I was doing mostly product and engineering stuff. So this was, I guess, back in 2016, 17. I think it was like early 2017 that I started really hearing more about crypto, and then basically, obviously, like most of the people got into the previous cycle by investing into like all of these tokens and ICOs, and then losing all my money, and then realizing, okay, now let me research where did I lose my money. So then I started researching and realized, okay, this is a pretty cool tech. So I'm like, okay, now I think I can spend some time in this industry. So honestly, like when I first felt the true utility was, I still remember this like I had a personal experience where I needed to uh, send some money to the US from India, where I was living back then, and to my brother. But unfortunately, it was over a weekend, like Saturday, and the banks were like, "Oh, come back on Monday. You can wire the money." But I needed the money to go to US same day. So then I checked with my brother. He said, "Okay, like send crypto to my Coinbase." So basically, then I converted some crypto, sent it to his Coinbase, and he was able to withdraw the same day. So that was like first day. Okay, I was like, okay, now there is actual value to this like crypto thing. And then I realized, okay, there is real tech behind this. So then after that, yeah. So since then, mostly through the previous bear market, just like hanging around and seeing mostly on crypto Twitter, mostly the memes and fun, and then obviously in between we had the open finance or like early days of DeFi with synthetics, ETH Lent, which is Aave today, and Maker. So this is, I think, late 2019. So I was just playing around most of the stuff, and then obviously COVID hit, and stuck at home, nothing better to do. I was still at my previous fintech gig at this time, but obviously stuck at home, nothing better to do. And then we had the compound liquidity mining stuff happening, and yeah, that 2 3 months were like probably super fun, and then really gave me the confidence that probably DeFi is like the first breakout application for blockchains. So like I could feel the tech actually working really well. New, let's say, financial behavior being created on chain. So obviously was parallelly exploring some new stuff in DeFi around credit default swaps with my other co-founder Harshita. And then yeah, I was lucky to like run into the founder of TimeSwap, Rickson, who's like the technical founder. So he basically was presenting the idea for TimeSwap at a Gitcoin kernel hackathon. So Sandeep, who's the co-founder of Polygon, is like a close friend. So he was judging this hackathon, and he knew that we were trying to build something in DeFi. And he said, like, I met this guy. He had this very weird some idea, but there is something in this idea that you guys should speak to him. And then we started speaking to Rickson, and we realized, okay, this is a very novel idea, and there is a potential like huge market for this. And this is essentially how the team came together. This is like late 2020. So yeah, I've been
Cool. So,
building for now close to 3 years. Pretty strong team of like 15 plus today. Obviously, Mimi's there, but yeah, that's like a pretty long-winded intro. I guess I'll let Mimi take over.
cool, Mimi. So maybe we can use this transition to let you like share with us. So after you started writing those threads, how did you actually come across the TimeSwap team? How did you get to know them? How did you get so interested in it that you've guys like decided that okay, you're getting involved and you're becoming a part of the team, and then maybe after that we can start getting into what TimeSwap is and how can we
Sure, sure.
share
Sounds
with
good.
the audience. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, sure. So first of all, thanks a lot for the early support, man. It means a lot. You're one of the few like big accounts that spotlighted my content like early on. So that kept me going. Although like I paused for like a good 6 months. Now I'm trying to like revive back. So long story short, how I transitioned was that I was basically finding any protocols that are not like uh forks in DeFi. So that filtered like about 90% of protocols out there. So it wasn't really like a hard to find. I just had like probably 20 or 30 protocols that I wanted to write about and research. And in that process, I've always like tried to engage with the team about, learning not only by reading the docs and the dApp, but also talking to the team, some of their point of view about the big picture of what they're trying to build. And I got connected with basically TimeSwap community lead who helped me like basically he became like someone like my chatbot for anything TimeSwap related. I kept on spamming him questions. He just kept answering back, and I was like, dude, okay, this is something new actually. So I was still in the VC, and so like what I said, my GP was mainly focused in infra side. I was trying to pitch him, we should look into like DeFi. So I gave him a good list of like 10 projects with all the evaluations, anything, sharing him, this is what I found. At least you should take a look. And he was open to the idea, but not very like sold to it. So I guess I just decided, I want to try DeFi, not like infra. So I was asking around and I asked like the community lead, hey, could you connect me with the founders of TimeSwap? Then I had a call with Amit. And I think it was not a week after that. Then yeah, we decided
Yep.
yeah how things should go on. So I'm in.
Yeah, it's
A nice story.
pretty interesting times. I think, yeah, I think thanks to you guys also highlighting Mimi's content back then, I guess we stumbled across him, and then out of nowhere he wrote a thread, because I remember like my community guy telling me like this guy in our Discord who keeps asking a lot of questions, and he asks very smart questions. So I'm like, okay, let's engage. And then I think he wrote the thread, and I was like, okay, this is like high quality. So we said, okay, let's speak to the guy. And then yeah, when I spoke to him, I thought like he's like some experienced TradFi guy, and he's like, yeah, I'm still in college. I'm like, okay, what? He's still in college. You're still in college. You're writing threads. You're working for a VC. Like, how are you doing all of this? So then yeah, we were like, okay, like he said like he's interested. We're like, okay, of course, come on board. And then yeah, everything else is history. Like obviously, Mimi now leads all of BD for us in work ethic, and obviously very smart. So like yeah, we are very lucky to have him.
I was just going to transition to kind of letting the audience really get a good understanding of what actually is TimeSwap. We've talked a little bit about what your roles are and kind of the ideas that kind of brought you towards
Yep.
TimeSwap. Amit, you mentioned some of them, but kind of what actually is TimeSwap? What can you do on it? And why did you even build it in the first place?
Yep. So I think the simplest way that we try to explain TimeSwap is that it is the first fully decentralized lending and borrowing protocol. Uh, if you want to like abstract it further, we say that it's like Uniswap, but for lending and borrowing, right? So now I'll try to break that down into like different parts of it. So like the first part of it, that is the first fully decentralized lending borrowing protocol. So what does that mean? So if we look at most of the lending borrowing protocols in DeFi, let's say even from back in DeFi summer till today, like the designs tends to be very similar. Like you have uh, either pooled assets or isolated markets. You have an oracle that fetches the price from some external price feed, and then using that you try to price the, let's say, how much collateral is needed and what is the interest rate based on a interest curve. Uh, what we realized after DeFi summer, so this going back to like the origin story, is that obviously during DeFi summer it was all about Uniswap. Like we saw how Uniswap and its permissionless design unlocked this capital formation for large communities, right? So communities were flourishing everywhere using the Uniswap base primitive. So when we looked at, let's say, the lending borrowing markets of that time, which was also like Aave Compound, we realized that there are only few assets that you can actually use as collateral on these markets. So when we dug further, we realized it is not because they didn't want more assets on the platform. It is because out of choice for risk management that you cannot have all the different types of assets as collateral, because all of them followed a pool model where if you add a risky asset into a pool, it can impact even the highest quality pools, right? So we realized that the designs in the market at that point of time would really not allow any asset outside of, let's say, the top 20, 30 to have credit markets. So we thought of that, okay, that seems like a really big market that is underserved. Uh, there doesn't seem to be anybody trying to solve that problem. And we thought, okay, that is like a pretty big problem that we can definitely take a shot at. So that was the initial like thought process behind TimeSwap of why or what we wanted to tackle. So the problem was that how do we create a generalized financial infra like Uniswap, but that allows credit markets instead of like the equity markets, or let's say token markets that Uniswap was facilitating. So obviously when we look at like Aave Compound, we realize that okay, the reason why they can't list long tail assets is because you can't have robust oracles. So they need robust oracles to create markets, and obviously you can't really use, let's say, a Uniswap TWAP model to get the Oracle price, which is quite easily manipulatable. Obviously, during the bull market, there were many protocols that actually just forked the Aave compound design and just created isolated markets and launched, let's say, for long tail assets. But what we saw was that all of these markets were getting eventually Oracle manipulated. So pretty much if you look at any market outside of like Aave and Compound, that listed a long tail asset, most of them got Oracle manipulated during the bull market, and they were left with like bad debt. So obviously, our thesis, we were very sure that there is definitely a need for Oracleless lending borrowing protocols. So it was just about now figuring out what is the most optimal design. So we went ahead with our version one in like early to mid 2021. So throughout 2021, we were basically building out this first AMM for TimeSwap, which is an XYZ equals to K AMM. This went into testnet like late 2021 and went to production on Polygon POS like early 2022. So around February, March 2022, this went live, and this product was live on the Polygon ecosystem for about a year. We did about $7 to $8 million in terms of volume. This is all without any sort of token incentives. But soon after launching this version one itself, we realized there was certain inefficiencies in this design. So we thought of, okay, how can we make this design even more capital efficient and also allow us to scale to all the markets? So that's when we went back to the table and worked on the current version of TimeSwap, which is TimeSwap version 2, which works on a three variable AMM x plus y into z equals to k. So this is the one that is currently live on like five different chains. This went live early this year around February on Polygon first, eventually moved to Arbitrum, which is like our mainstay right now, with most of our partners and liquidity being on Arbitrum. We're also there on like Mantle, Polygon ZK AVM, and Coinbase's base. So that's like the evolution. Now about what exactly is the product. So it is, like I said, it's a fully decentralized lending borrowing protocol where you can take fixed maturity loans against essentially any collateral. So how does that work? It is creating Uniswap like isolated pools with two pairs of assets. The additional information here being that you also have a maturity. So you have, let's say, an ETH USDC market where you can use ETH as a collateral and borrow, let's say, USDC, but this will have a fixed maturity. Now, obviously, there might be a question, why fixed and not, let's say, perpetual like other markets, right? So one of the downsides, or let's say trade-offs, that we made when we gave up using oracles was that we can't use active liquidations or live liquidations. So obviously without an oracle you can't do liquidation. So if that is the way, how do we ensure that, let's say, borrowers repay the loan, right? So we decided, okay, we need a maturity. As a borrower, you take a fixed, let's say, fixed term loan with a fixed cost, but you have to repay that, let's say, that loan before the pool matures. So if it's like a 1 month, 2 month pool, you can borrow today. You just have to repay before that maturity. In case you don't repay, that collateral gets distributed to the lenders and liquidity providers. So what you're getting as a borrower is a non-liquidatable borrowing experience. So basically, you don't have to worry about collateral price movements. Like in Aave and other protocols, you have to maintain your health factor. So here, once you borrow, it's like a borrow and forget experience. So you borrow some amount, then you have a maturity date. You just have to repay before that. Nothing happens in the middle. There is no liquidation. So you can borrow and forget. So it's a slightly different user experience to what we currently have in DeFi. So obviously, when you think of that, you might be thinking, okay, if there is no liquidations, it's probably slightly more riskier for lenders, which is true. So this is like the way we think about this is, if you look at traditional finance, right? In traditional finance, the borrowers are never active market participants. Like, let's say a company is borrowing, let's say, capital credit for expansion, right? So they borrow and they have term repayments or maybe 6 monthly repayments. They don't manage that position actively. But in DeFi, it's the inverse. Like, it's the borrowers who are always managing their positions actively, whereas lenders are passive. But if you look in TradFi, lenders or investors are active, but borrowers are passive. So we realize that, like in DeFi today, bulk of the credit markets is designed for active traders who need, let's say, short-term leverage. But we thought that, okay, there is a potential to create a new unique user experience, a new design that also scales to, let's say, any long tail asset or basically any asset out there. So fundamentally speaking, TimeSwap is a fixed maturity, non-liquidatable lending borrowing protocol, which allows you to scale to any long tail assets in a completely secure manner. So you can safely and securely use this protocol without having to worry about, let's say, Oracle manipulations. So yeah, it's a pretty long explanation. I hope we can dive deeper into various parts of this.
Much information there, Amit, just regarding
Yeah,
kind of TimeSwap. There's so much to dive into there. So one
yeah,
of the
yeah.
things that you mentioned was the idea of not having oracles. You mentioned that oracles have been manipulated. I've seen in quite a lot of places where people say this isn't the case, and actually it's a number of other issues. It's market manipulators. What do you have to say about that?
I think we can all, I think, debate on the definition whether it's an Oracle manipulation or a market manipulation, right? The point is that the market or the users are suffering. It doesn't matter if we define it as Oracle manipulation or market manipulation. End users' capital is at risk due to a design choice of depending on Oracle, right? So we can say it's market manipulation or whatever, but your design is enabling that market manipulation, which is in turn affecting, let's say, users' capital, which is at risk. So I think there is obviously, I mean, at least I've seen in media, they always define it as Oracle manipulation itself. But obviously, there are teams that debate that, saying that the Oracle actually is working as expected. It's somebody else who's manipulating liquidity. So Oracle is representing or sharing the accurate price as of now. It's just that that was manipulated by somebody else. So we can say that that's not manipulation of Oracle or market, but eventually it doesn't matter. What matters is that the user's capital is at risk because of that design choice. So obviously we think there has to be an alternative solution for that.
And do you think there are trade-offs to not having an oracle whatsoever?
Yeah, absolutely.
Could
So
you
the trade-off,
expand?
like I
Yeah.
mentioned, yeah. The trade-off is that in our current design, like I mentioned, without oracles means there are no liquidations. So obviously, as a lender, you have to be slightly more cognizant of the collateral that you're taking exposure against. So if you go to our UI, you'll see that for every market, there is a specific price called as a transition price. So that is a price that is set at the beginning of the pool creation. So you set a transition price, you set a maturity, you set, let's say, a current collateralization and interest rate, right? So uh, the downside is that as a lender, you have to now think, okay, do I think the value of this collateral will hold above that transition price till maturity? If yes, then yes, I think I should lend into this pool. If I think no, then obviously I should not be lending. Now, the the trade-off obviously enables us to like basically cater to any asset out there. So yeah, based on today's design, that is one trade-off. But we are working on like a new design where we can also have native liquidations without using an oracle. So it's like a slightly more ambitious design. We're still like very early days into it, but we think it is possible by combining like two different pools into a singular pool and have native liquidations. But yeah, I think to answer your question, the trade-off is that lenders have to be more, uh, let's say, active. You can't do passive lending like Aave Compound, where you just lend and you are essentially passing on the risk management to the Aave DAO or like the risk team, right? Whereas here, there is no external risk manager. You have to manage your own risk. So it is a slightly different user experience as a lender.
Do you think that means that we'll always have two types of lending markets? We'll have the Aave kind of lending markets, and then we'll have these innovative, Oracleless, no liquidation type lending markets. Do you think there's a market for both, or do you think one will, you know, take the
I think
greater
uh,
market share?
I think both will coexist purely because each of these design has its own strengths. Like Aave and similar model, their strength is they can cater to assets with deep liquidity. So they can actually provide probably better pricing for those markets, at least compared to TimeSwap's current version. Obviously, we're working also on a concentrated liquidity model, which has a pricing curve that can actually compete with Aves and others. But I think today, yes, for I would think both of these have their own, let's say, plays in the market. And over time, maybe there is a generalized solution. We are definitely working towards it. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
That's pretty exciting. Concentrated liquidity
Yeah, yeah.
for TimeSwap. I wasn't aware of that. That's exciting. That's
Yeah.
exciting to hear for sure.
Yeah, there are quite a few interesting ideas. Obviously, now with Uni's intent model, now there is intents and hooks, right? So now there is an even newer model that may be possible. So we're still exploring if that is even a better solution. But yeah, I think there is a lot of at least innovation on, let's say, capital efficiency that is happening across the ecosystem, which is good to see.
Oh, that's
Guys,
great.
where's the app available currently? Like on which networks you guys are on? And maybe you can also share with
Yeah.
us some stats and TVL and stuff like that.
Sure, sure. We are currently live on Arbitrum, Polygon POS, Polygon zkAVM, Mantle, and Coinbase's Base. So we're currently live across these five chains. We have been live with this version 2 since February this year. So now roughly about 7 months. We've just crossed, I think, $13 million in terms of cumulative lend and borrow volume. So this is all without any incentives. So this is all organic based on like demand from both parties for the various assets that we have listed. So TVL roughly has been hovering around 1 to 1.5 million. But yeah, with that TVL, we've been able to do like about $13 million worth of lend and borrow volume. I think close to 5 or 6 thousand users across these five chains. And yeah, I think we've been lucky enough to have worked with quite a few of the best teams across these ecosystems. Like on Arbitrum, we work quite closely with Trader Joe, Pendle, GMX. So GMX V2, we were the first protocol to list that token as a collateral. We worked very closely with Plotus. So Plotus had the Plotus ARB, which didn't have any sort of secondary liquidity, but it still had a lending borrowing market on TimeSwap for like good 3 to 4 months, even still active today. So it's one of the most in-demand pools on the protocol. We've worked with like Unsheath, we've had Lido, uh, Gains Network. On Polygon, we've worked with QuickSwap, Push Protocol, Qidao. So we've had a pretty uh, big list of partners who we have worked with in the past 6 months. And we do believe that the protocol has now started to have quite a bit of organic demand, by which what I mean is we keep getting inbound requests from teams that want to list their assets on the protocol. So that's how like Velocimeter on Coinbase is currently listed. They have an asset in partnership with Beefy Finance, so that asset has been listed for a while and has a really good demand. So yeah, it's been pretty exciting few months. I think we feel we have reached a place where the contracts are also now battle tested enough. We've gone through enough audits. We've tried different kinds of exotic assets. Now we can like supercharge this with some sort of incentive on top. So yeah, quite excited to get started that also pretty soon.
Sounds like Mimi's been quite busy then, hasn't he?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's been
meeting
all over
calls,
the
late
place.
night calls every day. Yeah, it's been
One.
long weeks. Uh-huh. Going on.
No, continue, please.
I was just saying, it's been a very long like week. Even like this week, it's just Tuesday here, but damn, like yeah, a lot of stuff happening over
Feels
here.
like
There you go.
5 days
Yeah,
happened in 2 days.
yeah, exactly. Go on, go on.
One thing that I
Jared.
wanted to ask was, the chains that you're supporting at the moment, Mantle, zkAVM, Base, they're not like the typical chains that you would expect to see with certain like protocols in DeFi. Can I ask, like, why did you pick those chains and why specifically those ones for sure?
Yeah, I think obviously one of the things that we realized is we need to play to our strengths, and our strengths is that the protocol is very light. It's kind of like a Uniswap contract. You just deploy it once and it just starts working. So we don't have any external dependencies. We don't have basically like once the contract is deployed, you can call a function and launch money market for like any pair of tokens, right? So obviously that is our strength, and obviously after having spoken to so many teams across these ecosystems, we realize there is demand from protocols like on Polygon, like Quickstop and Push team have been providing their own rewards on top of like the base protocol rewards to incentivize liquidity on TimeSwap pool. So obviously that's because they see value with it. I think why these specific chains, I think we were specifically looking at where the demand is, and obviously, uh, typically in DeFi, we've seen when a new chain goes live, there is a renewed interest. There is a lot of liquidity that flows in the first month. And if you're able to capture some of that liquidity, that tends to be sticky. So we realized that we should play to our strengths, and that's why we went live. We were the first lending warrant protocol on Mantle. On Base also, like we launched, I think on the same day when the chain went live. And same thing with Arbitrum also, like we were the first protocol to list the Arbitrum token as collateral, like within 2 hours after the token became claimable. Obviously, there was the initial hiccup with nobody able to claim, but as soon as we were able to claim, we launched the market. So within a couple of hours. So yeah, I think the design enables certain specific kind of user experiences that previously was not possible with other designs. So we are quite nimble and light. So we obviously chose these networks for now, but we are going to expand to other chains as well. Wherever there is demand from, let's say, teams that wants, let's say, a credit market for their asset, we are happy to deploy and support them.
So, am I right in thinking, potentially that could be the likes of Optimism, maybe
Yep.
ZK Sync potentially? Are they some of the chains that you guys are potentially looking at?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are looking at Optimism, ZK Sync. We are obviously in close touch with those teams. I think there was some upgrade on ZK Sync that's many money park protocols are waiting for. So once that upgrade is done, I think we should be ready to deploy. Also looking at OPBNB and some newer chains like Monad and like even Bera chain, I guess. So yeah, I think there are quite a few like markets that, or let's say chains that we can expand to and cater to these let's say teams and projects that essentially can't create a credit market for their tokens.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I think I know the answer, but I think it would be really good for the audience to know why you're not on the Ethereum mainnet.
Oh, we were on Ethereum mainnet. So like we did launch on Ethereum mainnet, I think sometime in March itself. So we were again like the first protocol to list Blur. So the Blur token could be used as a collateral on TimeSwap. It was there for like a couple of months. We also worked with Rocket Pool to deploy our ETH. Now the problem with mainnet, obviously, when we deployed, it was earlier this year, coinciding with the Pepe meme coin season, and the gas was like through the roof. And obviously, since we don't have any sort of liquidity mining incentive, the rates were also like modest, I would say high single digit, or let's say 10 to 20%. So obviously, uh, users like didn't want to pay, let's say, $50 gas to like get $70 in return after a month, right? So I think it was mostly to do with gas costs that we haven't pushed for Ethereum mainnet, but we will once our incentive program is live, we will have some markets on mainnet as well.
Guys, what would you say are, first of all, another thing that I wanted to ask and I forgot to ask before. Why the name, actually?
Hmm.
Why is the name?
Yeah. Yeah. So so think of this, right? When you are, let's say, borrowing USDC against ETH today, you go and deposit that ETH and you get the USDC back. After a month, you go back and give that USDC, get your ETH back. So what you've essentially done is you have done a swap through time, right? You have exchanged first, gone through time, and then exchange it again to get back. So it is like swapping through time, and that's basically what lending borrowing is, and that's why time swap.
It's a really clever
Cool.
name, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
I like it a lot. And to be honest,
I think
But to
most
be
people,
honest, yeah,
go ahead,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Yeah, I was saying, to be honest, a lot of people, like after hearing TimeSwap, they just assume syntax, right? So a lot of
yeah,
confusion
yeah,
there
yeah.
because of the name.
It's a,
So if you go
yeah,
to the
it's, yeah, yeah.
technicality, it's right. But
Yeah. Technically, it's correct, but yeah, by industry standards, we do have to always say that we are not a swap, we are a lending borrowing protocol. So, like, I think the
Yeah.
biggest problem is while attending conferences, like while you go to conference and introduce this times, oh yeah, so what does your DEX do? So, like, we have to again set the context and explain the whole thing again.
Yeah. Also, I remember that when I first heard about TimeSwap, like it was very close to when I first heard about Timeless, and it took me
Right,
a
right.
while to understand that okay, yeah, these are two separate protocols. I should make sure they're not even related in any
Yeah,
way.
yeah,
But I really
yeah.
got to become aware of them in a very in a matter of a few days. Another thing I wanted to ask you guys is, uh, if you're now presenting yourself to like a new customer. So first of all, who do you see as your main type of clients? Is it retail? Is it other DAOs? How do you actually see it on that front? And also,
Yep.
maybe after that, what are the like if you really need to summarize it in a way, what are the benefits that you guys feel that users of your protocol are actually going to have compared to other products who try to do similar stuff?
Yeah, I think to answer your first question, I think this is something that we often like when we explain about time swap, right? So whatever like design principle choices that you can think about Uniswap, all of that essentially applies to TimeSwap. By which what I mean is Uniswap is like a fundamental primitive for exchanging assets in this instant. We are like a protocol or let's say a base primitive with which you can unlock credit, right? So Uniswap's primary client, I would say, are the LPs or the projects that want, let's say, exchange market for their tokens, right? So their primary as like customer, I would say, is like the projects and the token projects, and then secondary is probably the end users who swap, and then obviously they get a fee from that. So I think with TimeSwap also is very similar. Uh, any project that needs, let's say, a Uniswap pool, for them, TimeSwap pool is also like a complementary product for their token. So a token can have like an equity market or a swap market. It can also have a credit market using TimeSwap. So projects that wants, let's say, additional utility on their assets, they are like our primary customer. So that's why we work so closely with all of these protocols on all of these chains to help them bring an additional utility for their, let's say, token. Obviously, end users are like our uh, like a corollary user. I wouldn't say a primary user. I mean, they directly obviously interact with us. They provide us with protocol fees and revenues, but the primary customer is like teams and projects and token teams. The secondary is the users. Now, if you ask me why, to coming to your second question, like why should users like use TimeSwap, right? So, like I mentioned earlier, it's a slightly different uh, like user profile. Like in like other lending markets, you tend to be a passive, let's say, passive participant where you just deploy liquidity and like outsource all of the risk management to like the DAO or somebody else or team. Here, essentially, you have to essentially take care of that. So the users are, I would say, users who have a better understanding of, let's say, how lending markets work, who have, let's say, who want more flexibility in their, let's say, financial decisions, and who also want essentially no external interference. Now, one of the core uh, use case of TimeSwap is that like there is no admin keys. Once the contract is deployed, even we have no control over it. Anybody can directly interact with that contract and like use it like a Uniswap contract, right? So users can always make this choice that they have to only trust on this corresponding asset. They don't have to trust us. They don't have to trust any Oracle. They don't have to trust any DAO to manage the risk. You are your like it's like not your keys, not your coins, right? So it's very similar philosophy, very principally aligned with crypto in general. That if you want to take like control over your financial destiny, this is another tool in your arsenal with which you can unlock yields on assets that potentially you can not. earn yield in other markets. And more importantly, you can do that in a safe and secure manner. So for end users, it's essentially having the opportunity to earn additional yield on assets that typically are not available in other markets. And also there is potential for higher yields as well. Typically, when you are willing to be more, let's say more financially, let's say strategic, you tend to unlock more yields. And this protocol obviously requires you to have as an end user a more deeper understanding. But with a deeper understanding, you're able to unlock more yields on variety of assets.
I think that's what makes time swaps, so special. It's just such a unique mechanism. We haven't seen anything like this in DeFi, myself anyway. And I think props to you guys for kind of pushing the boundaries, especially when it comes to lending and borrowing. One thing that I
Yep,
wanted
thank
to
you for
ask
that.
was, could you talk to us about the liquidity side of things?
Yep. By which you mean how
The
or like,
AMM. Yeah, how?
yeah. Yeah, so when you create a market, right? So in Uniswap, when you create a market based on the balance of two assets, you have X by Y, you get the initial price, and then the market can decide if they want to take that price, right? So if the price is different from, let's say, some other venue, you get arbitrageurs who basically then equalize the markets. Here also, when you create a market, we have the AMM X plus Y by Z. I'm not getting into how that works. It's like a bit too complex to explain on call. But fundamentally, based on the balance of these two assets, when we launch a pool, the pool will have, let's say, a maturity. It will have these two assets. It will have, let's say, a strike or a transition price. Based on these three elements, the AMM is able to set the initial interest rate and over collateralization. So let's say we create a market for ETH USDC. ETH is roughly about 1550 today. So we create a market for 1 month. We set, okay, transition price something like $1,300. And we set the initial price as, let's say, interest rate as maybe 12%. And then now, obviously, we know the current market price is 1550. The transition price we've set is 1300. So that's roughly about 120% over collateralization. So when you create that initial transaction, the pool is created with these two assets. The initial price has been set. Now, after that, when a lender or a borrower interacts with this pool, it essentially changes that interest rate. And as the price of ETH fluctuates, that changes the over collateralization. So if ETH price starts falling, now the collateral you have to lock is lower. But if ETH price goes up, the collateral you have to lock is higher, which correspondingly means as a lender, it's now safer. Now the collateral value has gone up. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Like Uniswap, you just call a function, set the initial params, and create pool, and it starts working.
And at the moment, who's actually providing the liquidity?
Yeah, so right now for most of the markets, we have our partners who provide the liquidity. In certain pools, we also provide liquidity from our end as well. So we sometimes like help partners to like just create the pool and they just add liquidity on top. Or sometimes they just directly create the pool as well. And in some cases, we create and also add the initial liquidity as well.
Interesting. I'm just thinking, from a yield perspective. I wonder if has it ever been more profitable to provide assets as liquidity rather than to lend?
Yeah, definitely. I think it all depends on like so the way to think about this is, so obviously there is a lend, right? And the lend is a fixed income. Like you know that okay, your yield is locked at let's say 10% through this duration. But as an LP, you are actually betting on the volatility. So the more the number of transactions, the higher your yield rate. So when would you expect more transactions? When there is more volatility in the collateral, you can expect more arbitrage or more transactions that are hitting the pool. So as an LP or as a lender, you're essentially deciding, okay, do I want to lock in this fixed yield, or do I think during this time period there could be more volatility? So maybe I should provide LPing and earn that fees and any potential, let's say, defaults also. So there is also like an additional PNL that comes from it.
I love that so much. Just the fact that you
Yeah,
get to choose. If you want fixed
yeah, yeah,
yield or if you want to just have the variable aspect by providing
yeah,
liquidity. I really love that. That's a really fantastic feature, and someone
yeah.
like myself personally would definitely be using that a lot.
Yeah,
Right. So when is
of
it coming
course.
out for us to use? When can I start providing my liquidity?
Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty soon. I think, like I mentioned earlier, so we've been live for a while. Contracts are pretty stable. A lot of partners also have utilized the protocol. Now it's time to supercharge with some sort of incentive. So we are going to soon start like a token pre-mining where you can add liquidity to different markets. Initially, only there'll be few markets, and eventually we'll scale to like other partners as well. So you can start adding liquidity and farming both the fees plus also like the rewards on top.
Okay. So it sounds like a potential token is coming soon. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, I think yeah. So yeah, we are definitely going to launch an incentive program, but it's going to be similar to like what some other teams have done, like Gearbox, right? So you fix a certain valuation, and then you can start pre-mining the token at that val based on the liquidity. And then currently our plan is that at least till uh, end of this year, we're going to run this pre-mining phase and see how the user response and feedback is, and then depending on also on how the market is, if the market is looking better than what it is today, then maybe yeah, we'll proceed with the token launch as well. But yeah, I think right now it's mostly to like incentivize users who have been supporting us, but also to attract newer users and liquidity. Because honestly, in DeFi today, like without incentives, it's hard to compete. So like pretty much every protocol has rewards. So to stay competitive, we have to like offer something as well.
Yeah, yeah. I guess it's a really hard balance because you kind of have to think, you've got the
Yep.
team, you've got the people lending and borrowing, and then you've got the token holders, and kind of making all three of them happy can be quite tricky, can't it? Like, how do you
Yeah,
find a
there are many
balance with that?
stakeholder management is
Yeah.
like basically what data job is. How to fix fires every day.
Do you think that you found the right balance to this?
I think I think if you speak to other founders, I think they'll probably tell you like one day you'll feel like oh fuck, it's all good, thankfully, but like an hour later you're like oh shit, it's all going hell. So I think that's like a daily cycle that happens every day. So there is no getting out of it.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Guys, I wanted to also ask you about another important factor when someone chooses to interact with DeFi protocol, that's the
Yep.
risks. Like for example, you've mentioned that with your unique design, you've eliminated oracles out of the equation, which is quite a huge deal because most of the stuff we're seeing revolves around oracle manipulation. What other kinds of risks do you guys think that are in a way at least possible? Of course, you're trying to prevent them in any possible ways, but
Yep.
what kind of other risks should someone consider before he uses it? A team, a person, whatever. What kind of attack vectors maybe are you guys looking into and trying to prevent? How do you guys see that aspect?
Yeah. Yeah. I think from security perspective, obviously, uh, smart contract risk is always there. Like, I mean, we have like undergone 3 rounds of audits with Peck Shield, Code Arena, which is like one of the best out there, and then there is a independent audit firm called Trust, who are specialists in AMM designs. So all these three folks have audited our protocol, but you can never be sure of smart contract risk. So obviously, one of the risks is smart contract risk, and obviously the protocol has been now actively utilized over the last 7 months with multiple assets. So obviously, with vintage, you get more confidence in the contract security itself. Other risk is, like I mentioned earlier, as a lender or as a liquidity provider, now you have to take on that risk management on your own shoulders. You can't outsource this to somebody else. So you have to think, okay, I'm providing liquidity against, let's say, Arbitrum token. So what is my view on Arbitrum token? Like how do I think its price is going to perform over the next few months? What are the critical, let's say, let's say news or let's say events for this specific asset in the next let's say month or so when I am willing to provide liquidity, right? So it is more of a risk in terms of the market you are taking exposure, less of let's say risks that are outside your control. So the only risk that is not in your control is, I would say, the smart contract risk, but there is no Oracle risk or external manipulation risk. The only thing you have to worry about is, okay, this asset against which I'm providing liquidity, is it safe? What are the odds of, let's say, it maintaining its value through the duration of the pool? So obviously there are other risks also, like similar to, obviously right now we don't have permissionless pool creation from the UI. Eventually it will be there, similar to Uniswap. So similar to like Uniswap, you can have folks who create, let's say, pool with very high rewards in the beginning to, let's say, attract liquidity, and then they can like remove the liquidity, right? So a typical like liquidity rug that you see on Uniswap is possible here as well. So that's why it's important for you to know which markets you are interacting with, which markets you are providing liquidity. So very similar risk dynamics compared to, I would say, what a Uniswap end user has to think of.
Interesting.
That's actually
I
great.
just wanted to ask, just on that same note, let's say if the AMM had quite low liquidity, could that impact things at all?
So it's again, I keep going back to Uniswap. So if the liquidity is low, basically what's going to happen is when you try to borrow, your interest rate is going to shoot up fast, right? So
Mm,
when in Uniswap, when you do a trade with low liquidity, your slippage is very high. So there, the
yes.
slippage is on the exchange price. In our case, the slippage is on the interest rate. So if the liquidity is low, when you try to borrow or lend, the interest rate will change drastically, but there is no other impact as such.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Thank you for
Yeah.
that. Thank you for that. Mimi, we haven't heard from you from a while, so I think it would be
Yeah, I
good
mean,
Yeah.
to
I've been
hear kind
taking
of.
up the whole
Mm,
whole stage.
mm.
I think Mimi can answer some
So,
now.
All good.
Yeah, for
so what
sure.
can
All
we
good.
expect next?
Next, uh, I'd say what you've been asking about, like Prima NLM, about the permissionless pool creation. We're thinking probably can't say an exact date, but it's real soon, like sooner than you think.
Mhm.
So with the LM, we we believe that we're gonna be much more competitive because I've been doing some modeling as well, and the interest rates that we are gonna offer is much more than competitive. It's gonna be like triple digit APYs, at least for the first few millions.
I
So
love
we're
that.
sure it's gonna be attractive enough. Because we actually heard a lot of feedback. It's an interesting product. It's fixed rate, so it's very nice. Unlike in Aave when you land in at 100%, then a lot of other lenders come in and you get diluted. Whereas in our case, there's no such thing as dilution as a lender, because once you open it, it's yours. So uh, the main reason why people were like not that eager to try it out is that even though right now we have like 10-20% organic yield, it's still not that interesting for someone to try out a new product just because it's the bear market. Uh, in general, people are much more conservative in trying new things. So much feedback is around like 30-50% is the sweet spot for them to try or ape into any new product. And now that we're offering like triple digit APYs, that should be more than enough.
That's
Yeah,
so interesting.
so
Why do you think
Prima is
people
coming soon.
why do you think people are like not keen on trying out TimeSwap? It's really interesting because
Right,
I think it's
right,
such an innovative product.
right. I'd say the main reason why people were not as keen is because we're building a very new product, like completely from scratch, right? So people, whenever they hear the word lending, typically they're much more like at least used to the design of Operating Compound, where they just see, a screen, supply, borrow. So that's what they've been comfortable with. And now the new design, obviously there's a new like how do I say it? For them trying out something new has different risk factors. Just because, I mean compound, although it's a lot of compound forks that just prove, how like what Amit said, how Vintage gives credibility. So now that we've been running up and running for 7 months in the V2 code base itself, we think, once it's say about 9-10 months or even a year, and a lot of pools running up, several audits online, we think that now that risk factor or that newness can be like removed from the mindset of people. So now they can purely focus on, how do I best utilize this product? So yeah.
And are there any like specific communities or specific areas of crypto Twitter or even crypto users that you're kind of targeting to kind of get on board now?
Right, right. So like what Amit said, I frame the product much more like B2B because we focus on onboarding partners, creating up pools for their assets, and our strategy is to, because these projects they have no other options besides us to launch pool, and it's a win-win solution because now we are enabling someone to unlock capital that is like the team, the community, anyone else, and now their token also has the benefit of having collateral utility, and with that they'll have the opportunity cost of holding the token is much lower now, so it's also good for the token price action, I'd say. So yeah, but back to the B2B talk. So our main focus is these partners, and these partners naturally want their community to use us as a platform to use their assets as collateral. So
Yeah, and
yeah,
also like
I'd say
something that
yeah.
yeah, sorry, something that we've also commonly heard from protocols is that they have always explored other credit markets, but because of Oracle risk, they have always stopped from like launching credit markets for their token. So we've heard this from multiple teams that they've looked at many of the existing lending borrowing markets to like deploy their token as a collateral, but like refrain from it because they understood the Oracle risk. So that's one of the key selling points for them also, that to like list on TimeSwap. They know that now they also don't get abused by the community because of some other design due to which they have like people lost money on like an asset that got manipulated. So teams are also quite aware of the design challenges. So that's also one of the reasons that has helped us to like work with so many projects.
Yeah, to add on that as well, not only do these assets like require robust oracles, typically they need to be like chain link grade, which is very pricey to a lot of protocols, and it needs heavy, like very deep liquidity in the range of double-digit millions, and it's not that reachable for even like uh TV projects with like greater than, let's say, 10 to 50 million TVL, because some of them might not focus on the token so much. And our design just shows that we don't really have a huge dependency on on-chain liquidity. Like what Amit said on Plutus DAO, we launched a market that went very strong on a token like which is Plus ARB, which had a market cap of about 9 or 10 million and only about 50 to 70K DEX liquidity. So no way that's gonna get listed on a market with Oracle and liquidations, right? So we really remove the barriers of what assets can be used as collateral.
I think that's fantastic. I think you can really build a lot of connections with some of these newer protocols, especially because of the fact that you've launched on some of these new chains, Mantle, Base. You've got a lot of startup protocols kind of
Mhm.
building there. So I think that's very smart of you guys because you can build some nice collaborations with kind of new protocols and their tokens coming out. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense for sure.
Yep,
That's a
yep.
great point, and that's a very important key, I think, in DeFi. At least the way I perceive the ecosystem. If you're in good relations and you know how to approach the right projects and the right people, it can definitely affect the amount of capital you can attract, and also the amount of people that will be willing to assist you with all kinds of stuff in case you
Yep.
need it. So it's definitely a
Yep.
very important front. I want to maybe add a bit on it. What's like the thing that you guys feel, maybe, if there's anything like that, that you're most proud of so far? I mean, with what you've accomplished. I will just give an example from what I've read yesterday a bit in the docs. I think the whole incident with Plutus and PLS ARB, I really think you guys made quite an impressive move there, because you really
Yep.
and you can expand on it maybe if you want, but feel free to also
Yep.
share other examples. But I really think you gave a solution to a situation that was like, you really stepped up and you have offered quite a solution, a liquidity solution for people who otherwise would have kind of been, you know, not taken care of. So
Yeah.
maybe you can expand on that a bit and maybe other stuff that you're kind of happy that you were able to already do.
Yeah, I'll let Mimi explain the Plutus situation.
Sure, sure. Yeah, so as like you guys probably know, and anyone quite degen would probably be aware of the Blizzard situation, and it's a liquid wrapper for art basically, and people were aping into the product just because they receive a huge sum of airdrop, and apparently there's 20% yield on top of that, so people were locking it, but they're not really aware of the actual mechanics before aping it. So now there's a lot of art blocking the contract, and originally it was planned, I think, 2 months after that locking, that there's going to be a secondary market for the Please ARB to ARB on Camelot concentrated liquidity DEX. But the thing is, there's a huge dependency on that DEX actually going live, which it didn't. It got delayed by basically 2 months. So people were waiting for 2 months, and some people wanted to exit, but there wasn't really any way. So I think it was 1 or 2 weeks after that locking began to amass. So I think about 6 million TVL has been amassed in that contract. So we reached out to the Plickstyle team. Hey, you guys are expecting 2 months still. There's any secondary liquidity. We can set up a pool so that your users do not need to like sell their Please ARB, be it on that like very low liquidity DEX that I mentioned with DK liquidity. Slippage here will be massive, right? And some people were even selling OTC. So we came up with a proposal. We can help you set up a market where your users do not need to sell, but they they can unlock like temporary capital basically up until that 2 months is over. So 2 months went by. We thought the DEX would go up, but it didn't. So we came with another proposal. We can set up another market again, like basically relaunching this pool. And community feedback from their like community is very strong, just because we're the only, I'd say, scalable solution for people to access capital using their Please ARB. And at that point, I think Please ARB was already trading at 60 cents on the dollars. So people were very, very adamant on selling, like, 40% loss, right? And in our case, we were able to give like a loan with 60 to 70% LTV. So that's a very attractive offer to a lot of people. And honestly, I'd say this is a very unique case, but it really like proved that our design has a need, and the strengths of our design basically is really highlighted by this case. Just because of the thing I said about
Yeah.
on-chain, very low on-chain liquidity, but big market cap, and no Oracle support. No chance to get listed anywhere, right? So
Yeah, and also I think soon after we launched this market, like our contract was the second largest holder of Plutus
mm,
ARB tokens after the Plutus's own staking contract. So Plutus staking contract had some 5-6 million, and our contract I think had some 1 billion of users who deposited it to like borrow USDC. So obviously there is strong demand, like within like the pool expiring 1 or 2 days of the pool expiry itself, as in leading up to the expiry itself, folks would ping in the chat like, "We hope you're relaunching the pool. Please relaunch the pool." So like there were people asking us to like relaunch this pool because they found real value with it. So yeah, I think that was a very very good use case for the product where it really had it actually provided value without any speculative demand. Like it was not for speculation, it was like real utility for users to use a solution where they can safely and securely interact and borrow like stable. So yeah, I think that was one really good case. Obviously we've worked quite extensively with Trader Joe team, like they had this auto pool token, which is the auto liquidity manager tokens for the pools on Trader Joe. So we listed those also as collateral. We also recently launched the Stake Joe. So obviously, Joe token you can stake and earn some portion of fees and rewards from the staking itself. So we launched market where you continue to earn the staking rewards, but also can be used as a collateral on TimeSwap. So you had the double advantage of continuing to earning the yield, but also unlocking some liquidity on that without having to sell it and without having to worry about like liquidation. So yeah, there is a lot of such unique cases that we're seeing that we've been able to unlock.
I actually think that's a great example, and I think that you like you pushing the ball forward yourself, like seeing a need, interacting with the team and the community, offering a solution which is unique. Very impressive, in my opinion, and a good example of exactly the kind of stuff that the composability of DeFi and like us being able to do so
Yep.
many stuff together when different teams recognize certain needs
Yeah.
of other teams and know how to work together. This is really how I believe we can grow as an industry and really provide solutions to people which will only strengthen the ecosystem in the long run because people remember this kind of stuff. Maybe not all, but I'm pretty sure that many people took that into consideration, and I think that was like really well done and well executed on your side. So much respect for that.
Thank you.
And on that note,
Thank you. Thank you.
like when looking into the future, where are you guys seeing TimeSwap? Like for example, 1 year from now, what will be something that you guys are going to say, okay, this will be a good progress and satisfactory for you guys? Where are you guys headed, actually?
I think for me personally it would be if like we enable permissionless creation of markets and it allows communities to unlock a new utility without us ever having to get involved, right? So that's what's happening with Uniswap, where like the Uniswap team has now no role. Like people are independently interacting with the contract and utilizing it for to meet their own financial, like say, goals for the community. So I think to get TimeSwap to like that kind of a level where like users can just call the function or let's say call the thing on the UI and independently coordinate amongst themselves, where this becomes like a tool next to like Uniswap and other financial tools that they use to like meet some sort of financial goals. I would say that is like the North Star for us. I think in 1 year, hopefully, I think like I mentioned earlier, like two things we are quite excited about is probably the constant liquidity plus also like native liquidations. So I think these are two things we're working towards, and obviously, I think obviously looking to work with as many teams as possible to help them unlock a new utility for their token. That's I guess the mission for us.
That's actually great, and looking forward to see how you guys manage to do it. Definitely, quite, quite not financial advice, folks, and whatever, but definitely for me, quite bullish after this talk with you guys. I definitely think I'll tell you why, because I actually think that I always admire honest builders who actually are striving to work for like novel solutions which can actually benefit the entire ecosystem. Because in many ways the success of one specific protocol can be like it's not a zero-sum game. You know what I mean? Like this,
Yeah, yeah,
especially at this
absolutely.
early stage. Like if certain protocols perform well, then other protocols can use that as leverage and
Yep.
bonding, strengthening the relations and the cooperation between all kinds of stuff. And for me, it definitely makes me quite bullish on what you guys are planning there. And hopefully, you guys can keep up the good work, do and reach wherever you want to reach. Wajat, you have anything else
Yeah.
you want to add, man?
Yeah, I mean, I just echo what you said, the advisor. I mean, I'm a TimeSwap user myself. I lend my assets there. I love the protocol, and I'm so excited to see kind of what you guys are bringing forward. I'm really excited to see kind of how time incentives, concentrated liquidity, all these things that you've talked about already kind of come into play. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm really interested to see how the actual time token kind of plays a part in kind of what TimeSwap is building. I hope there's some cool mechanisms behind it, which I'm sure there will be if you guys are
Yeah,
working on it
yeah.
for sure. So
That's
yeah,
what that's what we've been contemplating. Like, I mean, because like my co-founder Rickson, like he unfortunately couldn't join this call, so he's like a math geek, so he wants to like introduce all these kinds of weird mechanisms. So I tell him like, bro, like let's do one step at a time. Like our product already is a bit complex for users to understand, so he had some idea with the token also, which he wanted to like build. So like when we were deciding the token supply, he's like, have you heard of Unix time? Like there is a thing called
I
Unix
haven't yet.
time, which is so it's like most computer engineers will know. So there's like I think a time that started I think 1970 or something when the first computer was formed or something like that. So it's basically called Unix timestamp. So it changes every second. Like every second it adds one. So
Oh,
today,
really?
after like 50 odd years, that's roughly about I think 1.7, 1.8 billion. So he's like, since we are TimeSwap, we are going to keep the token supply linked to the unique timestamp. So it's going to be linked to the number of seconds of unique timestamp will be the token supply. So I'm like, okay, bro, that's it's cool.
That's cool.
But
Mhm.
yeah,
Man,
so
that's
he has
cool.
like all these cool, yeah, yeah. So there are a lot of cool stuff that's happening underneath this thing.
Yeah,
Some
I've
alpha,
seen
folks. Some alpha.
yeah, some alpha. I've seen Rickson speak quite a few times, and he does sound like a very smart man. So
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
all of you guys are very smart. You said there's 15 of you guys working at TimeSwap.
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
So
Yeah, we're a
15 team
so
pretty
members
big.
already?
Yeah, we're a
Wow.
pretty big team. I mean, we've been around since like early 2021. So I mean, most of the team is like quite young. So like Mimi is 22. We have like college going kids, like three, four of them, like 17, 19, 21. So it's a pretty young team. Like there are three, four of
Cool.
us old folks, and rest is all kids.
You're the old, I imagine. You're the old
Yeah,
one.
I'm the oldest.
By the way, are these people, is the team from all around the world? Because both of you,
Uh,
like Mimi, I know that is not in the US. Personally, me as well. By the way,
yeah,
not
yeah.
Wajat as well. I think you're in the UK, Wajat, right?
yeah, I'm UK based. Yeah, yeah.
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 And
So we're mostly based in Asia, like in most of our dev team, community team based in India. Mimi is obviously based in Southeast Asia. I'm based in Dubai. So like we're mostly in the Asian time zone.
cool.
Yep, yep.
It's so cool, man. It really is so cool and quite impressive the fact that you've been able to build quite a like such a big team, such a product, like a lot of enthusiastic people from within. The only way to go, I
Yep.
believe, in crypto, and definitely quite exciting what you guys are building there. Any other alpha you guys want to share with anyone?
Yeah, I mean,
Any exciting
the main
news update?
alpha is basically alpha is just we are obviously working towards the launch of the liquidity mining. So definitely follow like our official accounts, and obviously there is TimeSwap intern who shares all the alpha and also like Simpson Irene every day. So we have like interesting accounts that you can follow, and yeah, mostly it's like the rewards that we are excited to unlock and work with quite a few of our partners in the very short term. We're also hopeful of like obviously the Arbitrum grant is opened up, so we're going to be applying for that. So hopefully that also is some additional rewards that we can redirect to the end users.
No, that's brilliant. That's
Very
brilliant.
cool, honestly.
I
Yep.
think just before we wrap up, did you have any questions for us at all?
No, I think really been amazing. I think you guys spend like close to 2 hours now, I guess, on this call. So thank you for sparing your time and speaking with us and giving us this platform to actually dive deep because very rarely do we get an opportunity to go so deeply into the protocol, its design, the philosophy, principles that we have as a team. So like really appreciate the time spent here.
No, no, thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Hopefully, we can have you guys again with some of the future upgrades that you
For
have.
sure. Yeah.
Thank you to all the audience watching. Really appreciate it. Give the video a like. Drop a comment if you've got any questions about what you think about TimeSwap. Why do you use TimeSwap? It'd be really interesting for us to hear that as well. This was Send It with TimeSwap. So thank you very much and take care.
For sure, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
By the
Send
way,
it.
guys, where can the audience find you?
Yeah. You can find us on Twitter at TimeSwap Labs. You can find our app at app.timeswap.io. And obviously, there is a Telegram announcement channel, and there is a Discord community at discord.gg/timeswap.
Cool, guys. Thanks a lot, Wajat. Thank you a lot, Amit and Mimi, for coming. Really appreciate your time and your
Appreciate it.
TimeSwap
Thank you so much.
project.
Feel
And
free to
another
use the
last,
protocol and reach out to us anytime if you have any questions.
for sure. Send it, guys.
All right.
Send it.